All right, friends and neighbors, welcome back to another networking video. We are continuing our home network build, and it is site survey time. Now, let me begin by saying this had a few more moving parts than I thought, and so it's taken me a little bit longer to get this sort of underway. So the first part, the first problem that I ran into is that I've been adding more to my network than I actually realized, trying to solve all the things. So I've got a lot of components. It turns out that I've got things installed in the network that I completely forgot about. So I've been ferreting all of that out. And secondly, my ISP, I forgot, had not only the modem that gives me, in this case, fiber, but also they have a wireless network built in. And so it was a long enough ago that I sort of forgot that it was running in addition to the access points and the gateways that I had already set up. So I guess it's kind of good that somebody suggested we do a series on this. Now, the nice thing is that it's an integrated device, and I'll show you the model of that next time. But it doesn't have very many switch ports, and so that's a problem, which is probably why back when this all happened, I combined some devices or put additional devices over there. So this means that I have more access points or more wireless home gateways converted to access points than I really needed. But I also have a location in my house where I have a couple of nodes or a couple of devices that need connectivity, but I don't want them to be wireless, but they're off to the side. So I had to solve that problem. Okay, so what problems am I really trying to solve here? The first one is that I want to ensure coverage, of course, and good solid connectivity for everybody. And the second one is speed. So I want to increase the speed of the overall network. It's good, but I want to boost that. And so we'll do some speed tests here later on. So that's kind of where we are, but we've taken some steps forward. So let's talk a little bit about that. Now the first thing is coverage. When I started looking at signal strength, I mean, it's one thing to run around with whatever you have available in Windows, and it's another thing to run around with your phone. You can get an app on there, but they only provide so much in the way of detail. And, I'm a networking kind of guy, and so when it comes to wireless, there's some detail that I want to see. There's some things that I want to know. And so my laptop and my phone were doing exactly what I wanted. So I looked into some free wireless scanners. And so I chose the Wi-Fi analyzer. It appeared in a bunch of review pages and it was on the Microsoft Store. So I thought I would try that one out. And what I was really interested in was being able to see SSIDs, spectrum, remember 2.4 and 5 gigahertz portion of the spectrum, and then I wanted to be able to see individual channels. And maybe MAC addresses, things like that later on. It's a little overkill for what we're doing right here. And this is a screenshot of the output from the channels. This happens to be 1, 6, and 11. But, let's take a look at the actual scanner itself. Now, this is the first screen that I'll show you here. You can see that there are several networks out there. And what do they all share? What were we talking about last time? Channels 1, 6, and 11. So there they all are. So especially in this case, 1, 6, and 11. Now, this is showing us channel usage. And right now, these channels are just in the 2.4 gigahertz. Now, I know that there are 5 gigahertz channels around there. And what you have to be aware of is that when you are scanning for channels, it's not just that the radio that's doing the scanning suddenly knows everything. What it has to do is camp on a frequency and listen. Go to the next frequency and listen. We call that dwell time. And so you're moving from channel to channel, and it actually takes a little while. And then the results go away after a little while too. So this will show me the 5 gigahertz as well as the 2.4 gigahertz. It just has to get to those channels. So it'll tell me some detail about the channel that I'm currently connected to on the SSID. Here we are, and we can see that this is 802.11 AC. Now 802.11 AC has speeds some capability up over a gigabit per second, and we'll test that later on. We've got some IP address, we've got some security here, so there we have it. So here are the networks that we know about right this second, right? I just started scanning. And now let's do some analysis. Oh, you just saw a quick flash there. Those were the 5 gigahertz. Let's take a look at the 2.4 gigahertz. And we can see that there's a couple here. Here's a lot in channel 11, a lot in channel 6. There were some in channel 1 a little while ago. But what I would do if I was trying to see who was around me is I would go to wherever I was going to put an access point or a home gateway and just sit there for a little while and just watch what was happening. And this certainly informs what I'm going to want to do. Now, if I switch to 5 gigahertz, right now it says that there's not a lot here. And that's actually good news, because if I decide to go to 5 gigahertz, I won't have a whole lot of competition. All right, so that's what we're looking for. But clearly, the 2.4 gigahertz portion of the spectrum is owned by me and by some of my neighbors and some other folks that are around here. And so this is probably, at a minimum, one of the moves that I would want to make. I'll talk more about this later on because we're going to need some additional detail here. But let's move on to speed and design. Now, these were some previous speed tests that I did, and this is comparing my wireless speed on this laptop and my wired speed on the same laptop. Now, you don't have to believe me. I'm going to do this test for you right now, and the speed test site that I use is speedtest.net. It's from Ookla, and we'll just actually do the results right now, so we'll see what happens. So this is the screen that you start off with, and so I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Now remember that right now we are wireless, and I have a decent connectivity to my wireless network. So what happens is it's going to do some upload tests and then some download tests. Now, as we can see, this node is capable of doing 802.11 AC, and that is upwards of a gig. This is 83 megabits per second, so that is slower than fast Ethernet. And then I've got some latency numbers here for upload and download, and there is my upload speeds. Now this test is a little bit better. It's late at night here or later at night, and so these tests are a little bit better. Maybe the neighborhood, maybe my house isn't as busy right now as it was. I'm not competing against streaming media right now, but you can see while these speeds are okay and would allow you to game and watch streaming services, things of that sort, it's not crazy good. And so this is one of the things that we want to solve. Okay, so let's try a wired test. Okay, so at this point, I've shut off my wireless and I have a wired connection. So I'm cabled into my switch here in my network. So let's see what happens. Now, what we should find is that we are quite a bit faster. The promised rate for the fiber connection that I pay for is in excess of 500 megabits up and 500 megabits down. So this is actually a good way to hold your ISP's feet to the fire to make sure that they're getting you or giving you what they claim. And we can see that in the download speed, I'm up at 564 meg, so I'm very happy about that. And the upload is a little bit lower than I'm used to when I do wired, but 428 megabits per second, I'll take that. So we are right in spec for what my ISP tells me that I'm supposed to get, but you can see that this wired connectivity speed is what? 8-9 times faster than my download and upload speeds on wireless, depending on the day. So sometimes it's as low as 50 meg, sometimes it creeps up to what we saw today. So, you know, anywhere between 10 times to down to 6 or 7 times faster. And so what I want to try to do is close that gap between what my wired and wireless networks are going to do. So what's the plan here? Well, first off, we're going to start off with a device on every floor. This is kind of what we talked about last time, but I'm going to clean things up a little bit so that I don't have as many devices stepping on each other, maybe fighting over spectrum. But I want to make sure that there's good access for everybody to a wireless home gateway. The second thing is that I've got to improve the port density. So as I said, my ISP connection down here in the basement is very nice, but it doesn't have very many ports. So I have a larger switch to which all of my other devices are connected. Now the other thing that I have to solve is this thing right here. So I went out and bought a small Netgear switch, and so I'm going to put that on a media center that we have that has a bunch of devices over there that we don't want wireless connectivity for. We want those to be wired so we can take advantage of the bandwidth. And so I'm going to put a small switch over there and concentrate all the devices in one side of the basement. And the other thing was that I wanted to keep it inexpensive. All right, so what do I have already? Well, we have the ISP's wireless home gateway. I happen to have a Linksys box here that I'm very happy with. It's performed very well. And it is an 802.11 AAC box. We'll talk more about details in the next video. So I bought another one of those because it was on sale. And again, I'm trying to keep this inexpensive. We could spend $1 million here, but I wanted to try to avoid that if I could. And then again, I bought a small unmanaged Netgear switch. So all told, I'm into this right now for less than 75 bucks. And that's my basic plan after I finish scoping out a little bit more of the scans that I want to take a look at and take another look at some of the features to make sure that we can take advantage of higher speeds. All right, so this has been a site survey, and really the goal of a site survey is to understand your network and what's around you. So the helpful tool that I had today was that scanner app. But of course, I was looking at my actual components and where my end devices were going to wind up. And I found out that I had a lot of gear here that I maybe didn't need and that were sort of conflicting with each other. So it's a good thing we did this project. What we also want to do is periodically test our actual performance numbers. So I'm going to be doing speed tests, and I'll show you the results of my build and all of the details as we go through this. So make sure you take a look at your settings and the capability of your equipment. Okay, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Like and subscribe if I helped, and may those packets always reach their destinations, and hopefully they reach their destinations faster as we improve our home network.